Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. With me is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
You either smoke or you get smoked. And you got smoked.
Also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife Dork.
I forgot to look for a quote. Oh no. Hi, guys.
And,
I love you, Infinity.
Oh. And Brad Gullickson, mouth Dork.
Oh, so pretty. So pretty. Is that the quote? It's so pretty. Should I not?
No, that's good. That's good.
Should I stick to Blade quotes? No.
Mm-hmm. So
That's
motherfuckers
good.
always trying to ice
Honey,
skate
my
uphill.
mouth is dry.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. Can you blush? And welcome to the It Podcast. HOMEWORKcast.
Blade quotes.
Yeah.
Movie?
I actually think it's Do You Blush.
It's Do You Blush. All right. This episode is
Blade 2. Yeah.
Lisa Gullickson's homework assignment. Wife Dork was given White Men Can't Jump by the Turtle Dork.
Yes.
Yes.
So this has been a long... You were given this, what, like 2 months ago?
Yeah.
3 months
A
ago?
lot of shit has happened since I was assigned
summer
my homework.
vacation.
Comic-Con.
Summer vacation. It was like homework to do over the summer.
That's right,
So
and I
now
nailed
summer's
it. I
over.
came back with my book
Ready.
bag and my homework done. That never happened in high school, by the way. I never finished my summer reading. I know it's shocking since I'm such an exquisitely great student.
Very studious. Brian, you
Yes.
chose this. This was your pick. Take it away.
Well, I guess the
Biatch.
reason...
Sorry.
Oh.
the reason... Is that a quote from White Man Can't Jump?
No, that's cool from my life. Go.
Oh, no, the reason I chose this is the same thing Brad said is the reason why we do homework, is to give assignments that is not normally in someone's wheelhouse. And I know that Lisa is not a huge sports fan, and I thought that White Man Can't Jump is a great movie that uses it's a sports movie, but it uses basketball more in the backdrop to the characters. And I thought that this movie definitely has some great character dynamics that I think Lisa probably would kind of get into, especially with the character of Rosie Perez. And, you know, that whole storyline with Jeopardy and stuff like that. I thought, so I just wanted to give, something to kind of introduce her to sports films. And I know, like, sports films are different from sports themselves because, like you said, you like
Thank
boxing.
God.
Right?
Like, they're not really that bad. They're really not.
No,
But,
sports movies are great.
Yeah, they're sports themselves.
No.
Anyway, and basketball being my favorite sport, I just wanted to introduce you to this film and, just kind of get your thoughts on the film itself.
There are other things about that film that really make it a film that appeals to me. It is about friends. It is about like relationships and that kind of thing. It's also a con man movie, which I did not know. And when I found that element out, I found like really exciting and interesting.
Yeah, there are definitely elements of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I found entertaining was that there was an open discussion about race. And that interaction, but also it was a lot about interaction between men and women and how women handle a situation versus how men handle a situation, which is a theme that I saw come up with the Rosie Perez character and with the Tyra Farrell character.
Yes.
They're two very, very different women, but they come a long way in motivating their men, so to speak. And
They're two assholes.
They really are not, but they're
are straight dicks, Lisa.
The men
Wesley
are.
and
Yeah,
Woody?
yeah, the men are.
The men are dicks, and so they need to be steered a certain amount by their women, and they need to be straightened out by their women, which I think is not the most, like, this movie came out when, in 1992. So it's not necessarily the most evolved presentation of women, nor the most evolved presentation of racial differences, but still really interesting and I think really fun. And it made for a really fun movie.
Yeah, I that's one thing I noticed going back on the rewatch was like the dynamics between the men and women, and rewatching it, knowing that the era, not saying that it's like, this is not like the 50s or 60s, but knowing that this film was made in 92 and looking at the dynamics between men and women, specifically like with Billy Hoyle and Gloria and their relationship, going back and rewatching it, I was like, ooh, man.
Yeah, it's definitely like both of the women are dealing with men with gambling problems, and so the theme coming from the women is, what are you doing with my money? You need to get me more money, that kind of thing. But Rosie Perez in particular, staying with the Woody Harrelson character. I'll start referring to them by their character names. Gloria continuing to stay with Billy, even though he fails her again and again and again.
It's crazy how many times he F's up. And, I mean, he spends so much time in the movie talking about how he's not a chump, but he is such a chump.
Yeah.
He really is. And
I think
Rosie Perez is so infinitely capable and wonderful. I don't know. It just...
What's interesting to me is that the film, when it introduces both, Snipes' character and Harrelson's, they're both really jerkish, asshole-ish.
Yeah.
And the film knows that. But at times, as the arc is occurring, I think the film thinks the characters are progressing, but they are not.
Well, progressing in what way? Like away from their jerkish behavior?
Yeah.
But I don't think the film
is
trying to escape that, because I think they're still that way at the end, even though there are lessons that they learn. I think more so to like what you said with the friendship aspect of it, but they're still jerks.
I think the film lets Billy off, even though Gloria, we're jumping to the end here, even though Gloria is gone, I think the film lets Billy off with, he's finally got it.
Right.
He understands now that he's lost Gloria, he is going to make a change in his life. Now that he's had his photo taken by the goons,
the Stookie brothers.
Yeah, the Stookie brothers, he won't fall into this trap again. And I tell you, if White Man Can't Jump Part 2 came out, Billy's dead.
Damn.
But
he gets murdered.
But he's such a fuck up though, and he's fucked up over and over, and you see that constantly in this movie. So for him to get that lesson at the end, I think it's
But
earned.
is his motivation really pure? Because as soon as he gets Gloria back or another woman, then
Does he go back?
Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah, well, I mean, that speaks to another thing about addiction as well. It's like they have, like you say, they have this gambling addiction.
Right.
And that's something that even though Gloria's gone, that's something that's still always going to constantly be there. If we saw that in White Man Can't Jump Too.
And we're talking about the ending too, probably prematurely, but
Yeah,
I just feel like the honest ending of this movie is you leave that addiction there. You at the end, even after he's lost Gloria and he's learned his lesson, there should be a beat where, he goes and bets on another game, or, he buys a lotto ticket or something.
I also think that I mean, you can say that, but that might be off genre. I think the genre of this film is something lighter, something funnier, and something.
You make an excellent
I mean, ultimately, it is a comedy.
point. I want everything to be a noir, Brian, okay?
So
Everybody ends up in the gutter with a scar on their face.
So going back to, how was this is Lisa's first watch. I do want to get her thoughts on her first watch and these characters in the story. But going back, this is a rewatch for you, obviously, Brian.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit briefly earlier about seeing it through 2017 Brian lenses now. talk about that a little bit more. I'm interested to see.
Well, it was more so due with the relationship between Billy and Gloria, and the thing that just kind of, I don't know, I want to say it rubbed me the wrong way because I actually like these characters, but watching it now as opposed to like, I can't remember the last time I actually watched this film, seeing, I know that Billy loves Gloria and that's seen throughout the film, but just certain ways that he treats her, not really giving her a lot of respect,
Right.
and and
But also, like, the way that she's written. Like, some of the things that she wants and needs are bizarre.
Yeah.
Like I find the my mouth is dry conversation, which I guess we'll talk about later. But I find her argument like such a cliche. Oh, women just want to be heard, but not about like, I'm thirsty. I don't want to, like, if I say, Brad, I'm thirsty, please do solve it. Please do solve it.
No,
Like,
I'm not going to, Lisa.
I
I want to sympathize with your thirst.
I too am thirsty, Lisa.
I find the way that she's written at times just bizarre.
yeah, okay, yeah.
But she's so great, though.
She is, I mean,
Rosie Perez. Oh, my God.
she is like just charisma in double D's. Wonderful.
If I took anything away from this rewatch of this movie is Rosie Perez needs to be in all the films.
She's a standout in the film, actually.
Yes.
Yeah,
She steals the show.
she really is.
Everything. She's
She
better
really
than this than she was in Do the Right Thing.
She had way more to do.
I mean, I mean, I agree, and I do love her and Do the Right Thing, but I mean, she is phenomenal
in this
White Man
role.
Can't
In this
Jump,
role, I guess the beginning when the film opens up, we see Billy go to the courts. They're in California,
Venice
Venice
Beach.
in Venice Beach, and then we open up with the pickup games, and we get introduced to basically Sidney Dean and Kadeem Hardison and all these different characters.
Dwayne Wayne.
I think we are skipping over a really telling exchange, though, and that's the exchange of Billy with the buskers.
Okay.
Venice Beach Boys.
Yeah, so there's this kind of close harmony group on the streets of Venice who are busking.
Yeah.
And he stands there and he enjoys their music. He's consuming their product. And then he asks them where the basketball courts are, and they point out, well, you haven't, you listen to our music, you haven't paid us.
Yeah.
And so he takes a wad of cash out of his pocket, and he's like, oh, can I give you a 50? And their eyes light up, and then he's like, I'm just kidding, and then gives them $1.
Like I said, asshole.
Total asshole. But not only just an asshole, but completely misreading and I think he honestly thinks he's being funny, and he just has no idea where he's coming from.
Yeah, that's interesting to say that because, like you say, he misreads it and he misses the point of the whole thing, which I think bleeds into the rest of the narrative of the story with his relationship with Gloria. Like, he just misses the point, which I know we'll get to with the whole conversation about Jimi Hendrix and hearing the music and listening to it,
right?
Which is something that's always been a theme in my head ever since I've seen this movie.
Do you ever get it confused? Like, which one did he say?
No. It's weird. Like, whenever I always say, am I hearing or listening? And because in the film, they make it seem like, okay, you need to hear it. But to me, I think if you listen to it,
Here's the thing about that scene, though. Whatever word Billy would have used, Sidney would have used the other word.
Yeah. I can hear Jimmy.
Yeah,
I can hear Jimmy. Yeah, but that does lead into a lot of the narrative threads for his character. I think that opening scene. Yeah, and then I guess we get introduced to.
So then we get to the first scene where we get to meet Sidney, and I think that Sidney is playing basketball with his friends and his cohorts, and it's a very competitive game. But it also looks really fun. There's like a lot of trash talk and your mama jokes being thrown around, a lot of bravado and a lot of showmanship involved in this game. And then so they're playing this game, and there's 2 points left, and somebody gets a bug up their butt. Somebody gets annoyed. Somebody gets their feelings hurt, which I think is totally founded because they're all being really fucking mean. So somebody gets their feelings hurt, and so by Sidney, and so they quit the game, and so they need someone to fill in and finish the game, and so they call out Billy, and so Billy then starts immediately doing stretches and looking like a doof.
Yeah.
With the most 90s ball cap ever.
Yeah, I think the ball cap is intentionally dopey. It's part of his chump persona.
I had one.
You did?
I did.
I had a hot pink one.
Yeah.
Like a super bright hot pink. My parents would make us wear them to theme parks.
I had a very similar ball cap that went really great with my Billabong attire.
Yeah.
It's like the tie-dye. It looks like it came from Back to the Future, too. Yeah.
It's not that cool, though.
Yeah.
So then I guess they're looking for another player, and so they say, what about the white guy sitting right there? He's like, no, I don't
and he says no, and they're like, why? And he's like, I'm white. And where did it go from there? But it does eventually. So he starts like doing like some really dopey stretches, and they're like, come on, just like freaking let's play. Yeah. And so they end up putting money on it. Right?
Well, no, Billy ends up getting into the game, and they scored 2 points, but he does 2 passes. So he passes the ball, and then they end up winning the game.
Right.
And then that's when, because Sidney, because of his ego, he calls Billy out. He's like, you could pull a couple of passes out your
that's
ass.
right, because he was called to play on the team opposite Sidney.
Yeah.
And so then Woody Harrelson was going like, you were beaten by a white guy.
Yeah, so he says, how much, he says, so you don't know how to play this game as far as like, can you shoot the ball? Mm-hmm. And so he says, well, how much is it for you worth for you to find out? Then that's when they put the bet to shoot from the top of the key, and the first person who misses or out of 5, then they get the money.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so this is actually a really interesting moment because you see their different methods for getting each other off of their game and getting into each other's heads. Yeah. So Sidney's style is very overt. He's going like, I'm the best. I'm going to make you look ridiculous. Of course, when he says it, he sounds cool. When I say it, I'm just like, I am wonderful and you are ridiculous and all of this stuff, trying to get in his head that way. Very overt and very audacious. Yes. Meanwhile, the way that Billy gets in his head is he's very self-depreciating.
Yes.
And he's going like, oh, if I get this next shot, that's going to be very lucky for me.
Yeah.
And, it like, oh, I never really play like this. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that like, that's a very insidious thing to do. And like, you can only have that kind of self-depreciating sense of humor if you come from a place of power, right? So to me, I thought that little exchange was a very interesting way to point to a cultural difference.
Okay.
Where you like one side has to build themselves up while another side has the social cachet to break themselves down, to then, to go like, you were beaten by someone who you thought was worse than you.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because I think that's when we get into that one line that also plays a theme throughout the film, that when Billy tells Sidney, he was like, he finally gets tired of his trash talking. Right. And he just says, shut up. He was like, as a black man, you want to look good. You would rather look good and lose than to look bad and win. Mm-hmm. And that becomes a running theme in the story. When ultimately Billy, beats him at his own game and hustles him out of the money.
Right. Yeah. And they both have a hot-headed nature.
Yeah.
But they get to it through different means. And when Sidney finds Billy's button, Billy cannot handle it.
Oh.
Where when Billy finds Sidney's button, mm-hmm. Sidney can handle it way better and shrug it off quicker. Like when Sidney finds out, okay, well, Billy's weakness is Gloria.
It's Gloria,
yeah. Billy never really gets over it. I don't think.
No.
He stays mad. Where
he holds that.
Where Sidney has the confidence to let shit go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
following that game, we discover that Billy goes home, and that's when we meet the
Gloria.
Rosie Perez character, Gloria. Mm-hmm. and Gloria has an alcohol problem, and which is never addressed, which I find just like a fun character thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But she also is studying the almanac.
Yes.
Which I find so fun. So she is studying the almanac. You don't really know why, but we find out that they are in great debt to the Stuckey brothers. That initially, I guess Gloria borrowed a large amount of money, or was it?
I'm trying to remember when I saw it. I think what happened, if I can recall, that they put money on the game, almost like Snatch, when he was supposed to shave points on a game that they were supposed to lose, that they bet on, but he ended up not losing that game, and then he ended up owing them money. I believe. I think it may have been.
Right.
Like
I think I might find it later in my notes.
Yeah.
But even though they feel like they share this debt, this debt is a shared debt between them. Yeah. And Billy is trying to earn the money by hustling, where Rosie Perez thinks probably Gloria feels like, like getting a steady job and getting your shit together might not be as quick, but at least it would be more reliable. But they're in a place of flux. They're living in motels. They feel like they need to be able to run. They establish that they have an exit plan. For if there's a knock on the door, you go into the bathroom, you put your shoes on, and you count. And if I don't come and get you, leave out the window. So it's a very tenuous situation, but at the same time, they're an extremely cute couple, really affectionate. It's clear that Gloria has him wrapped around her finger. Yeah.
But we get that because then Sydney knocks at the door.
That's right. So there's somebody at the door. Billy's going to get the door, and Rosie goes to the bathroom. Gloria goes to the bathroom.
She starts to do the countdown.
Yes, and the escape plan they're going to meet at the Denny's at Pico on Pico, and it turns out that it is Sydney at the door, and he has a business proposition that they can hustle together.
Yeah, they want to hustle the courts in Venice Beach and around the area.
Yes, and we also find out that there's a huge game coming up. Some kind of tournament, and they would play together in a tournament. But leading up to that, they'll be doing hustles.
Yeah. And
we also learned that Billy played college ball.
Yeah.
So that's where he gets his basketball skills, and he's been using them to hustle ever since he wasn't recruited.
Yeah.
So he is kind of haunted by a lost dream of becoming a professional basketball star.
Yeah, so he's just a street ball player.
Yeah. And so then we go into our first hustle together. Their first hustle that we get to see. And so there's a big guy named Ray.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the one where he goes to the convenience store to
That's right. So I'll let you pick. So their hustle, the way their hustle works is they'll get in a situation where it looks like
what Sydney does, I guess they'll win the game and then they'll start the trash talking, and Sydney says
I'll let you pick my teammate.
Yeah, you can pick anybody out here, and then so they're like, okay.
Then they always go with, for some reason they fall for it every fucking time. They go, the doofy white guy in the tie-dye hat.
Yeah.
But there's this one game, and it might be this game, where there is another really doofy white guy in a polo shirt and pink pants.
Really?
And I thought, that's the guy I would have picked.
There's also women hanging around. There's squirrels.
Women can't play basketball, Lisa.
I'm just saying, I don't know. Anyway.
Is this the time where we tell Brian about the other guy who's hanging around the ball court?
I spotted the Black Ranger is standing underneath. I swear to God. So I'm watching this and I go is that the Black Ranger? And then I Google a picture. I'm like, Brad, that is him. And then Brad goes on to IMDb. And it is, in fact, what is that guy's name?
Walter Jones?
Walter Jones, yes.
Walter Jones.
Walter Jones is around the basketball court. It is confirmed on IMDb.
What?
Yeah, he's wearing a black turtleneck, which I think is really warm. And he has this little necklace.
Yeah, he's basically wearing the outfit that The Rock wears in that one meme.
You You
Does he
gotta
have a
be
fanny
kidding
pack on?
me. Now,
He might have a fanny pack.
I gotta go rewatch this now.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
And I
that's
think
crazy.
it's this game.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Because
Okay.
I wrote it in my notes. See?
Okay.
Okay.
Spotted a Power Ranger.
Like
Oh
Lisa's
my
like
goodness.
Lisa's like, there's the Black Ranger. It's like, there's no Black Ranger in this movie. Oh shit.
It was pretty great.
That's crazy. Wow.
But Ray, when he finds himself being beat, he starts getting angry,
Yeah.
and he feels like he's been hustled, and then Billy starts to apologize, but then Sydney goes, "Well, I've never met this guy in my life, and you can go ahead and
Oh, yeah.
because he had pulled a switchblade, you can go ahead and kill him.
Yeah.
I do not know this guy."
Yeah.
And lucky for Billy, Ray did not call his bluff.
Yeah.
And which I think is another, like, Billy is a person who, when shit hits the fan, is willing to cut his losses, where Sydney is a person who's going to commit.
Yeah.
Which I think is also really important in their relationship.
Yeah. So yeah, that was flavored with a lot of comedic beats in it.
Yeah, when Ray doesn't have the $500 to put up, he
And
immediately
he
goes
puts-
to his car and he tries to hold up the corner store.
And they already recognize him.
Because he's wearing like the same jersey he was just playing on the court.
And then, but I love the fact that it's not like the guy at the corner store goes like, just take that. Like, no. And then the guy at the corner store goes, yeah, I'll buy that gun for $225. I thought that was really funny.
So then everybody scatters when he goes and gets his gun. He's like, I'm gonna shoot all of y'all.
Yeah.
And then they run. And then that's when we get the conversation in the car.
Right.
With because again, this is when Billy is being a dick to Gloria because she's listening to some music and he's like, well, I don't like that shit and all this other stuff. I'm like, damn, he's being such a dick. Like,
Yeah, he's vicious against her music.
yeah. And I think that's when we get the conversation about
so they get
Jimi
in the
Hendrix.
That's right. So they get in the car and Billy pops in a tape and Purple Haze starts playing.
Okay.
I love how, like, in the world of cassettes, when have you ever in your car popped in a cassette and it
it's
started at the
right.
beginning of a song? I'm just like, this is a true fantasy because it's like, what did you do? Did you listen all the way to the end and flip? Nobody does that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they start like Sydney is of the perspective that you can't understand Jimi Hendrix's music because you do not understand Jimi Hendrix's pain, and of course Billy refuses to hear that, and he's like, yeah, but I like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they have that argument. I love that Rosie Perez adds to the argument because she's in the back studying her almanac because she is going to win Jeopardy.
Yes.
And she goes, well, like his drummer is white. And and then she pulls up a picture right out of the almanac, and the entire band is white,
except for Jimmy.
except for Jimmy. So he turns off Purple Haze and he starts putting on some country music. Yeah,
It's not the good stuff.
and then not only does Sydney refuse to listen to hear that, he's not even going to listen to that. He's like, this is garbage and I cannot listen to it.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. And then when they get back to
when they drop Sydney off.
Sydney mentions casually that that Gloria is a fine woman.
Yeah.
And Billy bristles immediately.
Yeah, and that's when you say he found his weakness.
That's-
Because he was really just paying a compliment to him.
That's right. And I think that people tell me that how hot Brad is all of the time. And I'm just like, dude, you should lay your hands on that because it is extraordinary.
Pillsbury Doughboy.
So Sydney has this power now. And then the expectation is, of course, that he's going to exploit it.
Yeah. So then I guess the next basketball scene.
We can't go to the next basketball
was
scene
that
because then we have our really wonderful shower sex scene.
Oh, that's when that's right. Because they get back in the car.
They get back in the car.
And he's like really pissed about everything.
Yeah, and
then,
so Gloria's trying to de-stress him.
Yeah,
and so what she decides to do
Fuck
is
the pain away.
straddle him while
straddles.
he's driving which is very dangerous,
Yeah.
and you should not do. And then they get home, and then they have a wonderful time together.
I
in the
remember
shower.
seeing
So
this in the
beautiful.
theater. This was 92. So I was like 14. I went with my mother and my brother.
Damn, you watched that with your mama?
I was 13 and I watched it with my dad.
And I remember that scene. And my mother used to always do this. Anytime there was a sex scene, she would always like try to cover my eyes. And I'm like, Mom, no. I was like, be around.
My dad would have me look at my feet.
Really?
Really? That is
Yes.
so cute. Would
Yep.
you?
Yes, I would peek up. Though.
I was 15 and I saw this by myself.
Ooh, nice.
Well, I mean, I remember when this came out, I really wanted to see it, but it was rated R, and I couldn't go see rated R movies, so I had to go with my parents or my mother to see this movie because it was rated R. So I was like, yeah. And I really wanted to see this movie when it came out. So.
Right.
My dad loved this film. It was like it had basketball. My dad, like you, he likes the b-ball, Brian.
Okay.
And he's like, oh, my son wants to see a basketball game. I'm like, yep, Rosie Perez.
Right. So the morning after is when we have the "Honey, my mouth is dry" conversation.
Oh, okay. So that's when that happened.
So, like this little exchange just really bothered me, because the argument is, so she goes like, "Honey, my mouth is dry." She wakes him up out of sleep, and so he immediately starts to get up and go get her a glass of water, and brings her back a glass of water, and then she's upset. And then she starts like spouting like what she's read in women's magazines, like she hasn't had her own thought about what a relationship should be in her entire life. And so her argument is, when I tell you I have a problem, why do you always have to solve the problem? And
I think
like,
her metaphor is bad.
the metaphor is terrible. I think that if you were going to have that argument, that would be she wakes up and she says something like, "Honey, I'm really nervous about Jeopardy not calling." That would have been the perfect thing. "Honey, I'm nervous about Jeopardy not calling." And then him saying something like, "Well, what we should do is this. We should go to I will help you study, blah, blah, blah." You should be offering solutions.
But I do think the metaphor is in character.
Oh, with
Gloria.
With
But I think that's like, that did not have to be her character. Like, her character could have been a
But
sophisticated
I don't
woman
understand
with
like
individual thoughts.
why she would think Billy would get that. Like why she? I mean, of course, if she asks if she's thirsty, she knows Billy's going to get a glass of water.
I don't know.
She's
Maybe
ruminating on the fact that
He doesn't
in
listen to
previous
her.
encounters, he does not listen to her.
Which is
and
true.
he is a man solver, which, I relate to, Lisa. And, she has been reading all these, cosmos. And this is the metaphor that she reaches for. And the metaphor doesn't work. And if Billy wasn't such a dolt, he could have outthought her.
Yeah, I don't know. But
Husband wind.
But I like what you say about approaching that in a different way about, okay, I'm nervous around that, because ultimately she wants him to empathize with her.
Right.
And I think that's a better way for him to empathize as opposed to saying,
because it makes her sound off her rocker. Like it may the women being hard to please is a cliche. The women just wanting an empathetic man is a little bit of a cliche. I mean, it's true that they want to be empathized with, but but they're also rational human beings. I thought that her argument was not rational.
But I don't know. Yes, I agree with that, but I do feel like the film is on her side in that scene and not on
Well, and it does
Billy's
pay off.
side, and
It
it
does
does
pay
pay
off later, but I still think it's irrational. So they get into an argument, and so the argument kind of spins out into other things, like, I don't like the word screwing. I prefer making love, blah, blah, blah. And so does she leave or he leaves?
well, no, he leaves, but then he spots the
Yes,
Stookies.
the Stookies are on the corner.
Yeah.
So she escapes out the back. Mm-hmm. And yes.
I think they go on the run. Maybe they go to another. I can't remember what happened.
Oh yeah, they go on the run, and it's so sweet because Gloria is beaming. She is so
that's right.
happy to be on the run for some reason, and it's really actually really cute. You can see that there's like a lot of excitement in their relationship, and there is something exciting about being on the run.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
then we get to see Sydney at his house. So we open up to there are some girls playing double dutch in this really nice suburban neighborhood.
Okay.
And then we meet Sydney and what's his wife's name?
Rhonda?
I had a hard time, like, as I was watching.
No, Rhonda's the wife. Yeah,
Sydney's wife.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't like. I was like listening specifically to get her character's name because I like to, and he like never calls her Rhonda in the film. Like if he does, it's very in passing.
He calls her like sweetie and
yeah. So I was like, what is this woman's name?
Yeah.
Rhonda. And so they're shopping. They're house shopping, and they're at a really nice house, and it's a little out of Sydney's price range, but Rhonda wants this house.
Yeah.
And
so that's when we learn that Sydney he's not just hustling basketball, but he has a lot of different jobs, the carpentry job, the roofing, a lot of different things that he's doing to try to keep his family afloat.
Yeah,
and he doesn't want her working.
Yeah, he doesn't want her working. But like that is another huge difference between Sydney and Billy, because Sydney has a lot of irons in the fire, and Billy is just hustling.
Yeah, that's it.
And Sydney's in the position where he can even be house shopping, where Billy just really isn't. That I mean, he's not even living from paycheck to paycheck. He's like living from like
meal to meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then we get to our the second hustle that we get to see, where Sydney makes a huge wager.
Yeah. So Billy's he's coming off the train, and so he gets into an argument with these two guys, and so then he goes through the same spiel that he went through before. Pick anybody out here,
and he picks Billy from across the street, which I feel like this is a little unbelievable. Like,
well, there's a reason.
Pick anybody on the planet,
but that gets explained.
Yeah, that gets explained. Yeah.
What? How does it get explained?
Because it's a hustle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They have to pick Billy.
Yeah, they have to. They have to pick Billy
because they're hustling Billy.
Yeah. So now.
So here I'm dumb because I thought because at the end of that so what happens is they pick Billy from across the street.
Yeah.
The hustle goes down, and apparently they're playing with exclusively Billy's money because Billy had earned $1,700.
Yeah.
And Sydney bets $1,700, all of the money on his person, and then they proceed to be outplayed.
Yeah, so they're playing, and Sydney is not on his game. He's missing shots, giving bad passes, and he's just off. So they end up losing the game,
and Billy loses everything.
Yeah,
and I interpreted that as Sydney was stressed out from house shopping and the stakes now that have been put on him.
Yeah.
Right? And then Billy is also stressed out because the Stookies are on his tail. And now I thought that this was a situation where they had gotten in their heads. So even after the follow-up scene where Sydney essentially confesses to hustling Billy, I kind of held on to the hope that Sydney had just kind of fucked up and just wouldn't admit it, but it's not true.
Because when he goes back home to tell Gloria that he lost all the money, and she's like, well, what happened?
Yeah, Gloria puts it together.
Yeah, she puts it together because it's like you got hustled.
And Sydney and Billy goes like, well, Sydney is not that kind of guy. He would hustle, but he wouldn't hustle me. I'm his teammate.
And when you rewatch that scene, knowing how it plays out, watching Sydney lose that game.
But Sydney seems apologetic at the end of that, and he doesn't like to see...
Because he's acting.
Yeah, he's putting on the act.
That makes me sad.
Yeah.
Part of the hustle.
Yeah, it's part of the hustle. It's part of the game. But yeah, so when Gloria pretty much lets Billy know, then they go to Sydney's house.
Right.
And that's when he sees that he's there with the guys they played against.
Right.
And that's when Rhonda and Gloria have their little conversation,
Right.
which, they have a little...
Yeah, so, like, it's interesting. Like, this is another, kind of 90s view of the difference between men and women, where men will fight and argue, but then, like, they don't solve anything, and they just get distracted by the basketball game, and then they're just watching basketball.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like, Gloria and Rhonda have kind of a tete-a-tete, and they, very civilized, over coffee, work out some kind of agreement that will be acceptable to all parties.
Yeah.
So.
And I thought that was great because then they agreed to have them be teammates in that, I forget the name of the tournament, but I know it's like a 2-on-2 basketball tournament. The winner wins $5,000. Or like, you guys need to enter this tournament. I like how that scene ends with them on the couch and they're just talking trash about each other. I thought that was pretty cool because it's playing into that rift between the two of them, but also showing that friendship that's ultimately they're going to end up having.
Right. We don't want to skip over, though, on the way to Sydney's. They talk about men's rules versus women's rules. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I think when they were kind of like walking up to the going to on the bus.
When they're on the bus.
When they were on the bus,
and, his view was, if you lose, you don't get to complain. If you lose, you're just the loser. And then where and then Gloria goes into like, winning and losing is an organic globule. And then you go to winning and losing and get what you need out of it. So like, sometimes when you win, you win. Sometimes when you lose. But sometimes when you lose, you win. Sometimes when you lose. And I think that even though it was told in a very Rosie Perez kind of way, it was ultimately the kind of the moral of the story. Yeah. And really what's the most important thing is that you come out of situations being the better person. Yeah. Whether you win or lose, you want to be on the moral high ground.
Yeah, you learn something from that.
Exactly. Which you can't do if you're hustling, essentially.
True.
Because you're not being honest.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation, but that plays a theme too, and I like Billy's response. It's like, I hate when you talk like that. Yeah, but that goes back to he needs to actually listen to what she's saying. Exactly. He needs to hear her. Exactly.
Yeah. So
then after, I guess, that whole thing at Sydney's house, then we get to...
So the agreement is that they're going to play the tournament and split the winnings. And when they win, split the winnings 50-50.
Yeah.
And so they go to the tournament, and Sydney points out the team to beat. Like, these two guys, these are the two guys that are going to kick our ass if our asses get kicked.
Dwayne Martin and the other guy, I can't think of his
Dwayne Martin
name.
Also played in another basketball movie, Above the Rim.
Above the Rim.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be my next homework assignment. Who knows?
Basketball month.
That would be bizarre if you all gave me basketball movies.
Just wait, Lisa. I'm doing the assignment next.
But then Billy does something that is completely out of character, and he starts acting his interpretation of the way Sydney acts. Yeah, and he starts trash talking everybody, but there isn't the camaraderie there. So he ends up he just does it completely wrong, and he just pisses everybody off. He's rubbing everybody the wrong way.
Yeah.
And
but it seems to work in some degree, because when you're watching the games play out and the team that they're ultimately going to play in the finals, he starts to get into their head, and that's the whole.
And
reason
it also brings out Sydney's focus, like in that, Sydney started to fall quiet, and he was super focused in his game, and he was then there to win instead of there to, I guess, look good. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, he points out, because again, it does focus a lot on some of the racial differences. But Sydney tells him, it's like, this isn't about black or white. This is about green. He wants this money. He needs the money for his family because he's trying to buy a house. So he's like, with Billy, he's like, I don't need you to play games, like talking trash to the guys that we're going to end up having to have to play. So like you say, he's focused.
Right.
Yeah.
So they do win the tournament, but it doesn't solve their relationship. There's still all of this agitation. And Sydney's ready to put it behind him, but Billy is still feeling pissed.
Well, the thing is like, because they play that game against the two, and then like the one guy that he's checking is just like abusing him the whole game. And so when he scores the final bucket, Sydney calls him out. He was like, "Why didn't you dunk it on him?" He's been dunking on you all day. And he's like, "Why don't you just like throw it down?" He's like, "Shut the fuck," all that stuff. And so that's when Billy starts to get into his head. Well, he thinks that I can't dunk the basketball.
Right.
So then that's what leads into, after they win the tournament, that's what leads into that next scene when they're in the car.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's this level of agitation on Billy's side that he's just not willing to let go, because now his ego as a basketball player has been called out.
Yeah.
So they're driving home, and so in the car, that's when they start talking about, you think that I can't stuff the ball. Which I think just sounds really like, that doesn't sound good. You don't want to stuff the ball. I'm like, are you baking? Are you fisting? I don't know. It's just in terms of like, casual sports terms, that's just not my favorite. But then Billy goes back on that tick of, well, you want to look good, and I don't dunk simply because I'm just so fucking humble, and I'm not going to showboat by dunking, and it goes back to the white people want to win first.
Yeah.
And so
then that pisses Sydney off.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they pull that. So they pull over to make another wager, and it breaks my heart, because part of me thought the movie was over. I was like, they won the tournament. Like, what are they still talking about?
Billy being Billy, and that's what, like, that's that. Every time I see that scene and he makes that bet, knowing what happened, it still pains me.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's just still a fuck up.
Yeah.
Chump.
So he goes, and so they pull over in this neighborhood, and they're going to play, and then Billy takes off his sweatshirt, and he's wearing like this dolphin t-shirt. Like, what? Like, you're clearly not in the right headspace if like you're going like, I'm going to be in a big tournament. What shirt am I going to wear? It's going to be my dolphin shirt. So they start. He starts trying to.
Yeah, he says
dunk.
he only needs 3 tries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sydney tells him very matter-of-factly, white men can't jump. And I was like, I thought it was weird that it hadn't come up yet. So
is this where
he starts making this, well, is this hoop regulation?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Is this
He starts
regulation?
making excuses like right away.
Is this where Sydney pumps up his shoes?
Yeah.
That was really funny.
Those shoes, man.
Yeah.
Pumps. Yeah.
I would like to see the Mythbusters pump up shoes.
I know.
Anyway, I did have pump up shoes.
Really?
I wasn't even playing basketball.
Everybody had
We
pump up
all
shoes,
had
man.
at least.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
So good.
So
of course, Billy loses the bet, and he loses all of his winnings. All of his winnings.
God.
So we get to see Sydney goes home, and his wife has made Cornish game hen, and they're having like this beautiful dinner.
Yeah.
And Gloria is sitting alone, drinking with a box of pizza, just drinking wine.
I feel so bad.
Right out of the
So
bottle.
bad for her. But that scene is that is an amazing scene for her. Mm-hmm. Like when he confesses what happened.
Right.
And he's like, it happened again. And she's like, no, it didn't happen. You happened.
Right.
And she just explodes. That Rosie Perez fire comes out.
And somehow he got on her Jeopardy tick. Like, Jeopardy's not going to call. And she's like, Jeopardy is going to call. Yeah. And that's going to be what saves me from this. And so she decides she's going to leave. And more power to her.
Yeah.
And on the way out, he accidentally starts a fire.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to take care of the fire. And in doing so, Rosie...
She hitchhikes
gets away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then... meanwhile, so he's the lowest he can fucking be. Gloria's left him. He is broker than broke.
Yeah.
And then he runs into the Stookies, who give him 1 week to get the money, and they show him the Polaroids. So they carry a book of Polaroids of people who did not make good on their loans and got the shit beaten out of them.
Yeah.
So now, like, he has 1 week to get the money, and his life is shit. Yeah. Meanwhile, we get to see Sydney at his place of business, which is an outdoor restaurant in a Latin neighborhood. And
he's meeting with a client about his roof? I think it's the roof. He's picking a tile.
Yeah,
for
he's
the
picking
roof
tile for the roof, and he's getting some carpentry work. Mm-hmm. And then Billy shows up, and he wants Gloria back. So he wants, what does he want to do?
He's trying to see if he can try to get her back. And so he knows, so the guy that he hustled with the basketball, I forget the guy's name, but he's a security guard on one of the studios where Jeopardy is. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, okay, I might be able to help you out.
That's right. And I love, like, he calls him his damn cross. Like, you know, you're my damn cross. Yeah. You know, you're my cross to bear. I like you. I will do one more favor. So it's Robert. Robert is a security guard on the game show lot. Okay. And so he's got... So in order to... So Robert says, okay, well, if you can make a shot across the court from Sudan, he said, if you can make a shot from Sudan... on a hook shot, then he'll get Gloria on the Jeopardy lot. Mm-hmm. And then we get to see Gloria on Jeopardy, which is the best fucking thing ever.
She's killing it.
She kills it.
They're like, and here comes so-and-so. He's a rocket scientist. And here's Gloria, former disco queen.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
a
awesome.
callback to her actual Soul Train days when Rosie Perez used to be a regular on Soul Train, and she used to kill it like every week.
Really?
Yeah, there are highlight clips like on YouTube videos of her coming down the line because she was Rosie Perez was original choreographer for the Fly Girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we get to see her dance and do the right thing.
Oh man, best opening credits ever.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh man.
So I love how they open with sports. And for some reason, that was just her blind spot. She didn't study sports at all. But luckily, they did have the category for like 5 foods that start with Q and all of the things she'd been studying up to that point.
That's where that daily double was.
Yeah.
That's right. And then she just kills it.
Yeah.
Oh, though I forgot to set up that Sydney, in doing this, even though he was like, "You're my damn cross. I'm going to do this for you." Yeah. He also said, "You're going to owe me. You're going to owe me really big."
Yeah, and that plays back in towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Gloria wins. She's in the total zone, and then Billy's gonna go see her in her dressing room, and Sydney's like, "Don't blow this. You know, you've been given this gift. You've been given this one last shot."
Yeah.
And remember, you owe me big. And then Billy knocks on the door, and the lady is like, Gloria does not want to see you.
He tries to barge his way.
Which I love. And so, but he pushes his way in, and he has his guitar, and he plays her a song. Yeah. And he melts her heart one more time.
Yeah. The callback to the I'm thirsty.
Exactly.
Empathizing.
Yeah. So, though we find out later that he learned nothing. But, so they end up going to the Shangri-La and having a really wonderful time together. Then at the Shangri-La, she gives him $200. $2,000, I mean. But with a specific purpose.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to give you this $2,000. You need to spend this money on clothes. To go on job interviews.
Yep, find a job.
And the fucking pin in it, like the button is, I trust you. I trust you with this money. Such a dum-dum. So
I think we cut back to Sydney because someone broke into
that's
his
right.
apartment.
So Sydney and Rhonda are robbed.
Yeah.
And so Rhonda is just clearly just so upset, and she finds her composure again, but she tells Sydney very certainly, like, I want to get a job, because I think that she just needs that. She just needs that locus of control. She needs to feel in control of her situation. Yeah. And one way to do that is to work. To work. Yeah. Yeah. And so he does say that, she can get a job. He says that that's okay. Yeah. Which I think is an evolution of his character, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in being robbed, he is so humbled that he can kind of see where she's coming from, I think, and about having that independence.
Yeah, and even he realizes the severity of that moment. Like, he knows that they have to get out of that apartment. Mm-hmm. Like, they can't, being robbed and nobody not seeing anything, and them having kids. And, he's like, our family can't stay here. So if my wife needs to work, if we need to make more money to get whatever has to be done for us to get out of here. Yeah, I think he finally has that realization.
Yeah, he hears her. Yeah, he hears her.
Yeah, he hears her.
Yeah. So yes. So the cop. Yeah. So she wants a job. Then we see Rosie and Billy again, and I keep calling her Rosie. It's because she's such an extra. Like when she's in a role, she is so
Rosie.
Yeah. She shines through.
She's not Gloria.
But Rosie and Gloria are walking, and Gloria is on rollerblades, and she's doing some Jeopardy math. Yeah. Like, now that she has this money, she sees all of this potential, and it'll ultimately, she'll get to be on a soap opera. Like, this is like she's now a star of screen. Mm-hmm. And then Sydney approaches, and he asks for one more score. Essentially, no questions asked. He doesn't say, I've been robbed, I really need this. He just says, I need this one last thing. And Billy, feeling that he owes him, I guess.
Because they set up in the beginning that the King and the Duck. So they're like these old school players who own the courts back in the day. So they used to hustle everybody. They're like the two best players to ever play in Venice Beach, and so they're back in town playing some games for money. And so they're like, look, it costs this much to get in to play the King and the Duck. And he tells him, like, I got $2,000, and he's like, all right, bet. He's like, let's do this because I need some help. I need this money.
And that was exactly what happened before. The last time that Sydney played with Billy's money, he hustled Billy. Yeah. So this is, a very vulnerable position for Billy to be in. Yeah. And Gloria puts her foot down, and she's like, no, you're not going to gamble with my money. And then Billy makes the worst argument of all time, like, but you gave it to me. It's my money.
I know.
Go fuck yourself, Billy. What is wrong with you?
I know. And he tries to rationalize. He's like, okay, he owes her, but he owes Sydney. Right. And he wants to make good with Sydney.
And he clearly just prioritizes Sydney over the love of his life, because she has taken him back so many times. Like, he is under the impression that Gloria's love for him is unconditional, which it is not. Romantic relationships are not unconditional.
It was just another moment where I just felt bad for Billy, because and that this is it. Like, if he does this, Gloria's not coming back.
Right, and he goes, and he just handles it completely deftly. Yeah. He goes, I guarantee victory. Like, I guarantee victory. And she says goodbye. And he refuses to accept it. Yeah. He just refuses to hear it. Yeah. And so she walks away, and they go to play this game. Yeah. And they win.
Yeah, I love the end of that. I love when they play the King and the Duck. Like, the music and everything. Like, the whole game is almost in slow motion.
Everything is in sync. They are as a playing duo and as friends, this is the culmination of all of their potential, is this game. Yeah. And they win. Yeah. And he has doubled his money, and then he goes back to the Shangri-La.
But during the game, he finally dunks.
Oh, he does.
Yes.
Which I think I kind of wish he never did.
Really?
Yeah, why not? Why?
Oh, man.
I think I like the fact
Why give him the power?
You know,
Why redeem his character in that way?
yeah, I don't know. Part of me,
really?
I've just changed my view.
I want him to go to dunk and brick,
fail.
or whatever
No,
the sports term is.
But the reason he was capable of dunking was because Sydney had passed him the ball slightly higher than normal.
It's not true, Lisa.
Yes.
No, the reason Woody Harrelson is able to dunk that basketball is because while he was in his trailer preparing for that scene, the director lowered the rim.
Or an apple box situation. But
No, they lowered the rim.
But the metaphor of that dunk was that by knowing Sydney, he had become elevated. He was elevated by that relationship. That was the metaphor of it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because Sydney saw a situation in which Billy could achieve.
Okay. Yeah,
and he put a situation where he could achieve that. And so
cool. Yeah.
So that was the metaphor of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just like, fuck Billy. He should not win in any in any capacity.
Yeah.
Complex Magazine, for the 25th anniversary of White Men Can't Jump, did an article called "How the Fuck Did Billy Hoyle Dunk in White Men Can't Jump?" in which they postulate magic sneakers, a genie, the Force. And it's like a 2,000-word article.
Really?
It's a massive
Actually,
article. I'm going to post it on our Facebook page.
You can find it in my timeline because Chris, the rap dork, did post that to my timeline.
I did see that. Okay, yeah.
I did not read it. Chris,
It's got some great diagrams. It's an awesome article.
But as in terms of like the plot, that was the metaphor of the dunk.
That makes sense.
But at the same time, fuck him. So he returns to the hotel, and Gloria is gone. And of course she's gone because it was not exactly because it was not a matter of winning.
Yeah.
And Sydney points that out to him, and he said, "Listen to the woman, right? Listen."
I tried to listen to the woman. You talked me out of it. And
yeah, and I think part of the reason he could make that argument is because of his relationship with Rhonda and the new height that they had reached in their relationship, where he just had this revelation of he had to listen to Rhonda and realize that she needed and wanted to work.
Yeah. But it's interesting too, because I like that exchange between the two of them in that moment, because and Sydney is right. He said, you talked me. He's like, I tried to do the right thing, but you talked me out of it. He's like, no. He's like, I presented you with an option and you took it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, he said, well, who should I listen to now? He was like, well, you're a grown man. You should be able to make that decision yourself. Right. And that goes back to exactly what he says. It's like, okay, yeah, you owed me, but ultimately it's your decision to make.
And plus, their relationship, even though they've reached a level of understanding, their relationship has been built on taking advantage of each other, not just in the hustle scene, but taking advantage of each other and their capabilities. And it was really a business relationship, and it was a business proposition. It was not a relationship proposition like Gloria's proposition. He chose business over his family, essentially.
Yeah.
So, and so.
But I think it because going to the end, because when they meet up with the Stookies, he's able to pay the money back, but yet they still take the pictures because they have to use that to, So after all that goes,
but he owed them $8,000, and he gave them $4,000. Because remember in the beginning of the movie, so he didn't pay them back entirely. He only paid them back halfway, which I think they're just like, okay, fine. Which he still kind of owed them, which is why they did the Polaroid. Okay. I think that they just reached a level of understanding, because mathematically it doesn't work out.
Okay.
Unless he had $3,000 laying around, which he did not. Though, how did he buy that dress? Which we totally skipped over.
Stole it.
But I think the relationship, like you say, it does kind of start with like a business type of relationship, but I think they are starting to build that true friendship towards the end of the film.
Right. That's the position where Sydney can give contrary advice. He can give, because he's giving advice as a friend, so that it's like two separate relationships. Like, I gave you a business proposition, but as a friend, I would have I'm giving you advice to not do that.
Yeah. Because at the end, he asked him, for a job. Like, now he needs a job. You know, so basically, he's
don't do it, Sydney.
Picking himself back up and basically starting over.
Yeah.
So
after that, he gives the Stookies the cash and poses for the Polaroid, and he's come to the conclusion that Gloria's not coming back.
Yeah.
And I really hope that she doesn't. And
I don't think she will.
And she won't. So I'm looking at my notes. So then my next note is maybe you two are better off, like, without each other, I guess. Maybe, did Sydney say that?
No, Sydney was saying, maybe the two of you guys are better off without each other.
Yeah.
And that's when he was like, well, it's like, I need a job. He's like, can you give me a job? And he's like, you're gonna be all right, Billy. He's like, you're starting to hear the music.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, it's like I can hear Jimmy. And he was,
yeah.
I love that exchange. He was, and then Billy's like, don't go dissing Jimmy. So you just learned that word.
Right. And so they're returning to that same basketball court where they had met at the beginning, and they pass those buskers again, and without even thinking about it, Sydney gives the buskers $20.
Yeah,
without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that and I think that was an enlightening thing, even at the end of the film, for Billy to see, Sydney essentially said, well, we're helping each other out. We're brothers. We're helping each other out.
Yeah.
But I think that, as like the overall message is, as human beings, we should all extend ourselves that way. And if we have something to give, and you have it, then you should just give it, because we're all brothers.
That's
humanity.
Interesting, because I like the moment with Sydney, but I never correlated with the whole relationship and how it played with the rest of the film. Because you're right, when he drops the 20, like Billy says, you drop the 20 on him. It's like, it's like, if I don't take care of my brothers, who will? Right. And it's the same instance with the relationship with him and Bill. Yeah, that's interesting. I
like the fact that it does all come full circle with the idea that even though that they're hustlers and the idea is that you are out for yourself, really the idea is we can all help each other. We're all here on this earth to make everybody else's situation a little bit better. And if that is to teach a white man to dunk or to give a busker the biggest bill in your pocket, that's what it is. And I just thought that was just like a beautiful, pure message at the end of this really sweet, not perfect, film. I did, and I really enjoyed it.
That's
so
cool.
Thank you.
That's cool. I'm glad. I thought you would get some stuff out of it. It definitely made me see some new stuff into it as well, especially being a big fan of this film. So I guess all my hopes for this film and how you saw it came true. That was cool. That was cool.
All right.
And did you notice I got a new notebook?
Yeah,
I'm such a dork for notebooks, but it's got colorful pages.
Multiple colors.
Yeah. So I got to bust in a new notebook with this film, so I'm excited.
Cool.
All right, Mouth Dork, you're up next.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So for Lisa, always a challenge, because I want to find something that she's going to, respond to, but might not necessarily willingly seek out. 2 years after White Man Can't Jump came out, Ron Shelton, the writer and director of White Man Can't Jump, wrote another basketball film for master director William Friedkin. That film is Blue Chips. But no, Lisa, I'm not going to give you Blue Chips.
I was about to say.
We can't have two basketball movies for HOMEWORKcast.
No Hoop Dreams?
No, because I don't trust Darren.
Space Jam?
Don't trust Darren to follow up a trilogy, because it'll be like the Eyes Wide Shut, Vanilla Sky, and then Brian's like, The Gray. We could have had a Tom Cruise trilogy.
I'm sorry.
So because you picked The Gray that one time, I won't continue down this path of basketball movies.
Okay.
Also, I've never seen Blue Chips.
It's not that great.
No. So I like to go classic. And, in the true sense of that word, doesn't necessarily mean it has to be old. It means it's classic, it's iconic, it's a movie that Lisa has resisted, it's a movie that the world has resisted, and it's a movie that we have talked about a few times, in passing on this podcast. but it's here. It's now. It's Tony Scott's Domino.
Yes, this is a movie that Brad has mentioned fairly often.
Oh, wow.
I have walked in on Brad watching it a couple of times. Watched it out. It has the chick from
Yeah.
Bend It Like Beckham.
Yeah.
Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley.
They're talking about. See, I've seen a fucking sports film. You think you showed me my first sports film? I watched Bend It Like Beckham.
There you go.
Yeah, so Domino. I love this film. I love the cast of this film. I love the insanity of its editing.
Yeah.
It's super aggressive in the most Tony Scott way. And
You deem this a classic?
for Brad, it's a classic for Brad. The world does not agree.
You know, you talk to Crank 2 is a classic to this dude.
Yeah, it's not that good. It's not Crank 2 High Voltage good.
See what I mean?
Again, we're saving Crank 2 High Voltage for our film club, so we can all really
Threats.
dig into the meat of Crank 2.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Domino, we're doing it.
Yay.
We're doing it.
I'll try to see if I can watch it too, because I've seen it only once. So like a stand.
Are you serious?
I've seen,
You only seen it
it-
one time?
Yeah, I only saw it once.
I recommend you rewatching it this week, both of you. We can have a rich conversation. It's written by Richard Kelly, the writer director of Donnie Darko. Lisa, you like that film,
I do.
so yeah.
Should be interesting.
Okay, I'm excited.
Do you have that on Blu-ray?
No, I don't.
Oh, I've got it on Blu-ray.
All right.
Oh man.
I think I have it on. I don't have it on Blu-ray. I think I have it on DVD, but I
I'll
can't
see
watch
if it's
DVD.
streaming somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can rent it or something. I don't know.
So you're gonna have to buy it. I want you to purchase it.
Jeez.
It's like $5 on Amazon on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It's dirt cheap, and you've got the Prime. You can get that shipped to you real quickly.
I'll do that.
But also, Lisa, it's time. She has to announce the next Itmod Film Club too, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That is right. So
Yep.
I decided to
Make it great.
go with a film that is one of my all-time favorite films. I used to claim that it was my number one favorite film when I wanted to be cool, but then I discovered that it was in fact that's my favorite film, and this is probably dropped, if I'm being honest with myself, to probably number 3 or 4. But it is in the light of just having to suffer gladly King Arthur, I thought it would be good to clean our palate with an actually good Guy Ritchie film, and so we're going to do Lock, Stock, and 2 Smoking Barrels.
Did you hear my shout out to you on last week's Fistful?
Hell
A
yes!
Fistful of Heist? Yeah.
Yes. So, I like, this is the movie that I fell in love with heist films, particularly, particularly the idea of a British crime film. What I love about it, it's really funny. The characters are really lovable, and it's one of those movies where everything kind of goes awry and then comes together beautifully, and it's just this clash of coincidence that creates the perfect situation for our characters. Also, I love the cast. With, of course, Jason Fleming, Nick Moran, Jason Statham of
Yep.
Crank 2 fame.
He had hair in this movie.
No?
Yeah, he has some hair.
He had some sides.
He has side hair.
He had side hair.
Perhaps. Of course, there's Sting. Sting is in this movie.
That's right.
And the music is absolutely amazing. This is
So
another
good.
situation where, with pop music as score, which I think is done extraordinarily successfully. So I can't wait for everybody to dust off their copy of Lock, Stock, and start. It's never too soon to get your film club homework done. Make sure that you hashtag ItMod Film Club so that we can get your Q's, your A's, your quements, and so we can discuss this film with you guys,
Yep.
with our
So-
beautiful listeners.
Today is Wednesday. Next Wednesday will be Tony Scott's Domino. Then Darren will assign for the Wednesday after that his Itmod homework, and then it'll be time
club.
for Lock, Stock, and Two
And
Smoky
keep
Barrel.
in mind,
Yeah.
guys, we generally record on Sunday or Monday, so if you get it done, if you have you give yourself a real nice Saturday night of that week, 2 weeks from now, order yourself a pizza, maybe get a nice bottle of wine, maybe
Wine and pizza.
get the high and the low, maybe champagne and pizza, because if you get a really nice champagne and a really cheap pizza, that's a nice meal for under $100. So get your sweetie or a friend and watch Lock, Stock, and make sure that everybody's hashtagging it Mod Film Club.
Yep. All right. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. If you have not listened to it yet, check out our Weekend Dork. It was a pretty epic, long episode. Also, Friday, we got a Fistful of Summer. We are looking at our top 5 films of the cinematic summer of 2017.
I cannot believe summer's over.
It has come to a close.
It's been a weird one.
Yep.
It has been.
The highs and lows, man. The highs and lows. That's life. You can find Brian at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter and Instagram and Letterboxd. Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Do your homework. And until next time.